right.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Stuart.
Thank
So
you, Bill.
up on the screen, do you want to start with revenues or expenses, Stuart? You don't have too many revenues.
I don't think so. So you can do expenses is fine, Dale.
Okay. So to start off with, we have our personnel lines. Included in those lines, Stuart is split out across a variety of departments and funds. So a piece of him is contained in the 1420, but he is also in the water and sewer fund budgets, as well as the planning department. A small piece is in there, and his other employees are in here. Lisa Ferguson, a piece of Lisa Nestor, and Sonia Tanksley. So that's comprised into the 1420 100,000 line. There's no overtime allocated for that department. We have an amount for sick pay incentive, for obligations for contractual, a small amount in for equipment. We have a 1420 400 line for contractual items. That is your Lexus
Correct.
line, which
Yep.
Stuart fabulously saved us some money, as you can see here. We had a projected budget of 8,200 for 2020. Stuart has been able to lower it down to 4,800 for the 2021 budget.
And Stuart, I recall when you did that, that was you changed the provider that you used to get your legal research online, right?
That's correct, ma'am.
We have a small amount for telephone and internet, printing and postage, office supplies, an amount in for professional dues and meetings, which is a lot lower at this point, as it is in every department due to COVID. Are you able to take advantage of online meetings and such, Stuart?
I do some through NICOM. I do some through the Bar Association, yes.
Great. Special legal services, our 1420 458 line is for Labor Council. That is staying the same as budgeted in 2020.
Hold on.
And that is essentially the 1420 department.
Right.
If we move over to 1910 458, that's special legal services. Stuart, do you want to speak to that line?
Sure. We've got, we have appropriated for this year for 100,000. We have actually, the special legal services are slightly higher than the 100,000 from last year. There were a number of matters that John Walsh has been handling, so I think that's where that comes out of that. That's not, I don't believe that's Labor Council there, so I think that's pretty much just John's, if I'm not mistaken. And but we have it back to $100,000 for this year, and so that would be the special legal services, because the tax certiorari stuff that we handle is done by Sonia, so there's no extra charge that's part that comes out of through her salary. And the land use council is on the planning board budget line. It's not a corporation council budget line.
That's correct. So then we have a line for 1930 400, which is for judgments and settled claims. So that one we're staying at the 60,000 as budgeted in 2020.
Right.
1964, 400 is for our tax certiorari refunds. We did up this number from 70,000 in 2020 to 97,000 in 2021. As you can see, for the current year, we are up to 113,000, representing more settled cases coming through. So that's why we increased in accordance with more of a better average for potential tax cert refunds to get paid out. Now we move into the water fund, also has a piece of legal services. So that's at 3,000 for labor counsel. An additional amount for small claims, 5,000 in the water fund. Special legal services has been reduced from 8,000 to 2,000 because it's only for items that are dealing directly with water or sewer. This one's sewer, sorry. 1930, 400 for sewer is the same, $4,000 budgeted as 2020. Again, it's also only for a sewer claim that would come through. As you can see, back in 2019, we actually did have a large sewer claim come through, totaling $61,354.77. And here are our revenues. We do receive a small piece through the IMA for Corporation Counsel for $12,637. And we also have an other recoveries line, which is insurance recoveries that we would receive back for damaged property. We do not budget for that line, and we hope to not get any revenues because that means we're paying out on the other side to replace something or fix something that was damaged. And that is the Corporation Counsel's budget. Any questions?
Could you just explain the town revenue? What's in the IMA? Is that prosecutor services or something? What is that?
Yes, that's the prosecutor services that is part of the court IMA calculation.
Right, and that's just it's been in the IMA ever since the IMA started 6 years ago or whatever it was.
Yep, that's correct.
So if that were to change, it would have to be part of a renegotiation of the IMA.
Yes.
I don't understand. I'm sorry, Victoria, what did you just ask? Sorry, I'm having my lunch.
There was a small amount of money that comes into as revenue into the legal department that the town pays us as part of our existing court IMA with the town for services that we theoretically would provide. I don't know if it doesn't sound like there's been an analysis on how valuable or worthwhile or relevant that dollar amount is, but because it's part of the more complex court IMA, it still stands. And it won't change unless and until the board renegotiates the court IMA with the town. When you do that, enjoy, it's going to be complicated. And there's a lot of, it was created when the village dissolved their court and it hasn't been negotiated.
So, in addition to that, how do we separate out their initiatives for legal fees? Let me think about 2019. There was some reasonable amount of time that Stewart spent on Sing Sing Museum. There is some reasonable amount of time, and I say Stewart, it could be Stewart, it could be one of his people. I don't know how work is divided up. How do you figure out, I don't think we keep like timesheets, so how do we figure out like any of the major initiatives that require so much of his time? So yeah, I get the land use if we have attorneys, but Stewart also spends time on that stuff. I understand that he gets a salary, but how do we delineate things that are major initiatives that require his attention, and they may never go to court. They're just, reviewing contracts or whatever, like water plant contracts or land use, etc.
Right. Yeah, in terms of the timesheet, it's not going to be separated out on there. If Stuart or anybody else that we want to keep track of a certain initiative or type of work, they could utilize the calendar that we could then build off of and create a cost analysis for it.
Yes, but you don't do that now. You
No.
just put in salary, a little bit for revenue, and some payouts that we have.
Right, and they do have an allocation, like Stuart does have an allocation that is over in the planning department. So a piece of his salary gets charged to planning,
Oh.
a piece of his salary gets charged to water, a piece of his salary gets charged to sewer. But would it be good to true up and see if those pieces, are actual, close to what we have estimated in the past? Absolutely, sure.
Is that something with, when we get to the payroll, the attendance function of admins that we can incorporate? Because I do think, especially for our IMAs, it's valuable.
I am sure we could create an attendance code that once every 2 weeks when we get the payroll, if they're segregating what they're doing, we could put it in towards that attendance code and then be able to report out on it.
Great. So when we get that system up and running, we should really talk about these types of things, because particularly where we have costs and revenue associated with those lines, it would be particularly important, but also as a way to measure how staff is spending their time against different projects, and where we can be more efficient on that.
Yep. Perfect.
I think that's something to look at. I'm more interested in the work that is being done, and I'm only using Stuart now because we're looking at the page regarding legal. We could have been looking at other things, but even in doing the RFPs, right? He did a lot of that. It's a lot of hours that he spent that I want to make sure people understand and that we understand when we outsource things. For the land use, people will look, oh, you only spend $60,000 on land use attorneys. That's great. Not really. It's 60,000 plus Stuart working many, many hours too. I'm not sure he's getting, and look, you could argue that's part of his job. So you don't have to do that. It's in-house. It's not an attorney charged by the hour. But I'm not sure it tells a full picture is really my point. I'm not so interested in understanding where staff spend every minute of their day, which is what tends to happen with timesheets. That's actually not my intent. My intent is to understand that when we outsource things, what part of that is actually our own staff working and what part of it is the outsource, and is it the right proportion? Because we do outsource quite a bit. Engineers, we use a lot of consultants, and I'm trying to the budget helps to understand where things are delineated and how time is spent. We also have 12 boards. 3-4 years ago, we didn't have such active boards. Stuart manages, and again, I'm not picking on Stuart. I'm giving him some kudos here, frankly. A lot of hours with boards. I don't know. I only know the boards that I liaise to. I don't know all the boards that he helps, and I think it's important to know how much work is being done on behalf. It doesn't mean he should or shouldn't do that, or that one of his folks should or shouldn't do that, but it's hard to see the true full picture. So I don't want it to be a barrier of somebody is now clocking every 15 minutes of my day. I really want it to be, okay, we hired a consultant for something, the consultant did X, but Stuart, in this case, it could be somebody else, did Y and somebody else did Z. The Y and Z, we don't seem to see on these budgets, frankly. And I just want to get a fuller a fuller picture. And frankly, I think it's more for staff to have a fuller picture because they sort of know they work at 9 p.m. on something because a board volunteer called with a question. We don't, we and the public don't actually see that. So it's of interest to me in understanding how to allocate funds. Maybe we'll get to it this year. That I think will be helpful in understanding how we outsource things. But I can understand that right now you're not. Stuart, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Where, in relation from this year to last year, could you give me, and you may have done it, I'm sorry that I was not available as much as I wanted to be this morning. Could you please share with me your three key headlines for what you think will be a major change for you in 2020 that we should be aware of, and therefore where you might need help from us? Doesn't have to be only financial, just where help might be needed, if any.
I really didn't look at it in terms of where help would be needed. I mean, I just know things that, have to be done going into 2021, in terms of, obviously the revisions to the zoning code will be a major thing to be working on. Potentially the land acquisition agreement with regard to the DPW site. There's, other, legislative things that we've talked about. Some people have asked about signage, particularly political signs, and where they can be placed and where they can't be placed. There's always the mention of towing, because that, I think, has been in existence even before I started here. So there's a variety of things to work on. I wouldn't say that there's anything in particular that, in terms of assistance or things like that. Those are things that are just queued up, but a number of things have gotten pushed back because of everything that's gone on essentially since March.
Okay, I'm trying to see if we need to give you more money than you've asked for. If there are initiatives on the list that were described last night that when you saw that list, you may have said, I'm going to be spending a lot of time on this particular one. The purpose here is to say, when I say help, I don't necessarily just mean people, but is there something that you may need? We've had this conversation before. You need interns, you need different technology than the village is going. Is there something with the town that's going to take a lot of time that you could let us know? Because we're sort of discussing that now. That's really, my purpose is to be helpful where needed, and where a department head may say, look, this is one of these things that's going to take more time than you realize, and I may need some help. That's really my intent here.
Understood. I mean, all of these things, many of these things are what I would classify as big ticket items. They take time, and it's just a matter of having to work through them and do what you got to do. The RFPs have taken time. The RFPs, I think, would be a little bit different if in some of these cases, if there was a personnel director here, but there's not. So we're just doing what we have to do. And it's all staff has been doing that. But in terms of my work, it's a lot of my work is in many ways reactive to what has to get done. And so if the work has to get taken care of, it gets taken care of. It's as simple as that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure if anybody else has other questions, but I do have few questions, I guess. Thank you, Stuart, for all the hard work that you do. I did actually enjoy it a lot, and I learned a lot through the process of the interviews. And I'm not sure if you finished. You did finish with the other interviews, correct?
We have one more of the workers' compensation. That's tomorrow morning.
All right, sounds good. Let me know how that one goes. I guess at some point I'll be curious to learn a little bit more of that from your perspective. But I'm correct, Rika. There's a lot of stuff that some people, or sometimes even we don't realize how much work Stuart does for the village. So in regards to, so again, I'm going to piggybacking one of the conversations that I was having with the landlord tenants, and some of the stuff was obviously the training portion of that, and what that entails. And I know you and I had conversations about, you know, what kind of training they should be getting, you know, what the idea was. Obviously, this year it was an unfortunate situation that, you know, a lot of the stuff wasn't, you know, didn't happen, you know, for the pandemic. But is this something, I know there's, they had asked in the past an allocation, I believe, of $3,000 for training. And I told them that I was going to ask you on this going forward. Is it something that we can do for the group as a whole? And as you know, courts the courts itself had changed the way they do things. So I wasn't sure if, you know, not to add more to your plate, but, you know, just for, you know, maybe we can have a little bit more of a discussion maybe with them at some point, maybe next month or the first quarter of next year, to kind of see what else can we do to strengthen that commission itself.
I'm certainly happy to do that. I know that Sonia had looked into that. Training is not, unfortunately, is not inexpensive for mediation type training. And I know that she had looked into it to some. I think Steve Dewey had looked into it a little bit. So I will follow up back with both of them, but I'm certainly happy to have a discussion with, you know, Julie and the other members of the board, and or, you know, Sonia, to see, you know, what we can do to help those folks. Sure, that's not a problem.
I appreciate that. I guess I'm just going to piggyback in what Rika said. Is there anything else that we can do to help you on, you know, because there's a lot of stuff that is probably going to happen next year. Obviously, we have the water plant that's coming up. There's some changes that we're doing on labor, lawyer parts, and all that stuff. Is it something that we not seeing that you think that we maybe need to see that going forward for next year?
I mean, on the water plant, the basic contract document was done this year. So we're in good shape with that. I know there's going to be an RFP for construction manager coming out fairly soon. So that will be that. As I said, I think the work on the comprehensive plan, particularly, you know, from my end, the more technical zoning amendments, not the stuff that we've been hearing from BFJ, I think will certainly take some time, because that has to be worked on, and then it comes to you folks, and it goes back to the planning board, then back to the board of trustees. So I think that's working there. I think down the road, we'll be probably looking at some changes that relate to the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board. We'll probably wait till we see the plan that comes out, you know, as of April 1 to put some of that, you know, into play. And that will almost definitely require, you know, legislative changes there. There's also the board recently approved the breach notification policy. The state does have a new records retention policy. So we're, you know, working on that, plus a sort of a social media / email policy based upon what the state has come out with. So that's, I think, a few things that will be needed overall. One of the things that we're going to try to do is have basically a policy page on the website, so that all the policies will be in one place. So we're going to be, you know, Jamie has been very helpful in getting that put together. But I think some of those policies will also become very important. And when we have our personnel director on board, that'll help as well. But that plus the records retention is big. FOIL, I'm sure we're well over 400 FOIL requests for the year, if not more at this point. And some of them are massive FOIL requests. So those various departments are working through them. And to the extent that I have to get involved, I do. And just it gets done. Now we have to get some more time on many occasions, but they do get done.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
only question was, but in looking at the numbers, it's probably right. The right amount is for legal services because we are just last night voted in a new contract for legal services, which is a very different hourly rate. But the 50,000 need to allocate. I guess that makes sense because we don't have a baseline for how much we're going to actually end up using these legal services. So I'm comfortable with that dollar amount. It's less than some years have ended up being already. So it's that was the one thing that stood out when you were first describing things to me. So
And just if you would, just Mayor, keep in mind that the new attorney will have to get up to date, particularly on the contract negotiations, so that while it is a lower hourly rate, they will need an opportunity. I did hear from Mr. Klein today from Keenan Bean, and he's going to be reaching out to Craig today so that they can start doing what they need to do to get up and running on those files. I also spoke with our insurance broker, who is working on that, particularly because we just got the estimate for next year's stop loss insurance. And if we keep it the same retention point, it will be nearly 12% higher. So putting us over $500,000 in just stop loss premiums. So it's good we have the broker to see if there's what else is out there in the field.
great, thanks. Any other questions or comments about the Stewart's budget? Stuart, anything else you wanted to just reflect to us before? I mean, you're setting a record here for under 30 minutes. So if you want to expand upon anything, we're always interested in your thoughts.
Oh no, I like pithiness better than wordy. So I'm very happy with that. So no, that's fine. I'm very glad you folks got a lot more to do, and I'm happy to keep within my time.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Thanks for
Take
everything.
care, folks. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Stuart.
you,
Thank you,
Stuart.
Stuart.
Thank you.